Just like that, we're back. Welcome to the worldwide broadcast of the Ted and Austin Broer Show. We're here bringing you the latest world news and health research and a whole lot of other wild topics along the way. So I hope you guys are ready for a great show today. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for the positive emails, and thank you for making Health Masters your number one stop and shop for all your supplement needs. How are you doing this morning?
You know, if I was doing any better, I'd have to charge admission, Austin. I mean, it's a great day.
$500 a ticket?
I mean, every day. This is the day the Lord hath made. Oh, by the way, now we're having people coming out, and they're saying they want Mel Gibson to redo the Odyssey and do it with the original poem from Homer and use real Greek characters.
You know, I love it when people on the couch just come out and say, you know what, I think you just need to redo a $500 million movie.
Well, that was Mancow.
Oh, was it? It sounds like a cool idea. That film took years.
Well, let me say one thing. There's a place in there where they go to this island and there's this witch, right?
Yeah.
And she turns these guys, they're eating like a bunch of pigs. It's kind of way too long of a scene. And they're basically, you know, she turns them into hogs.
It happens, though, in the Odyssey, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But in the Odyssey, it's different. This lady on the movie is unbelievably ugly and old.
This is Charlize Theron's the one as far as...
No, this is a different one.
The different one? Okay. I only saw 45 minutes of it. You guys
No, I'm not picking on her because I don't fuss at me because I said she's not good looking, okay? I should have said it that way. But in the poem, she's this blonde bombshell who's unbelievably hot, like Marilyn Monroe in the poem by Homer. And they put this person in there who looks awful instead of this blonde. And I think to myself, well, why couldn't you just make it like this, like it's said with the poem? But again, you have to remember, you can't have pretty women in this movie. Now, Charlize Theron, she doesn't look good. She's way too skinny. Sooner or later, the demons win anyhow with these people. And so the crazy part about it, I shouldn't have said that.
Bro,
I apologize.
That was unnecessary.
And but that was pretty low. Delete that.
Yeah.
Okay. And and so it's a situation where when you read the original poem, you start to realize that this is not, what the original poem was depicting. And so a lot of it's woke. Like that's kind of stuff that's woke. And they should have put that. What's that? There are two people they could have used for that role. What's the name of that one girl from the? She's that one who did that. That one. She was real pretty. She did that Tarzan movie. She's the blonde. What's her name?
I don't know, but I don't keep up with actresses or actors. I really don't pay attention.
And they have the one who says she's got good genes.
Sydney Sweeney here. That's your favorite right there.
Well, all right. They could have used either one of those two. And then you'd be like, okay, that's more depicting what the actual poem
Sydney
was.
Sweeney would have been an interesting role for that.
Well, then, and what would happen is they'd have people would have been complaining about it. But then remember, his wife is the one who bankrolled the film. Apparently, he married into some money.
Whose wife?
The guy who produced the show, the director, yeah. And so apparently she bankrolled it, and so she may have had a big success. Maybe she was the one picking the cast members. I don't know. Oh, by the way, this is interesting. I don't normally go here right now because it's pretty dark, but a lot of it might be accurate. And I don't know what to say about this. Russian insider is warning that we're already in World War III, that we're already in the hot war, and it's a single false flag is needed to spark it. This is what happened with Sarajevo and the Archduke Sir Ferdinand being assassinated in World War I. And Victor Bout warns that every war game scenario points to Israel's next move to be staging a massive, potentially nuclear false flag to be blamed on Iran. Now,
I have a hard time arguing with that, honestly. What we've watched now in the last couple of weeks is nothing more than an escalated theater.
Well, Israel says they're not getting involved with the war again. It's our fight now. The United States is
right. After a month ago, they said we are not going to abide by basically a peace treaty.
But remember, they're the ones that are now completely integrated into our military and our activities.
Exactly right. And they've also taken over about 50% of Lebanon now.
And the other thing too is this. I mean, you got to look at it from a standpoint of who's really in charge of the Gulf War over there. Really, what are they doing? And then a lot of people look back at Mossad and CIA and MI6 for 9/11. What happened with the trade towers?
Yep.
So when we had the burning of the Reichstag in 1933. Which brought in the Enabling Act into Germany and brought Hitler into the Führer position. All these false flags are used a lot, Austin. And they are. And a false flag is when it's an old term from the old pirate days when basically a pirate ship would fly British flags. And so everybody thinks it's a happy, healthy ship that's basically part of the British Navy. And suddenly, right before it attacks, it drops the British flag and throws up a pirate flag. Now it's basically, that was a false flag. They used a flag on the ship that wasn't real. And now all of a sudden they're in a full-blown attack, and they weren't expecting it because it was a false flag. Telescopes didn't show it. They didn't see anything. And so it's a problem, and so when you've got MI6 or CIA or Mossad, and these guys are really good intelligence agencies, they can do all kinds of stuff. Look what happened with that one movie that with Benghazi, was it 26 hours?
13 hours with GRS.
That was again, set up, and somebody gave those people the coordinates to hit that doggone embassy with Ambassador Stevens, and of course he was killed. And what a mess that was.
Well, and the thing is, right now you're watching this massive, massive trough of cash that's flowing to the military-industrial complex. They're saying that the Pentagon is the war overall has cost us around $100 billion. Yet Hegseth is saying we need another $67 billion, requested in addition to the $891 billion that was already approved for the Pentagon through September 30th. So they want another $67 billion for this Iran conflict. That's going to push us upwards of around 160 to 170 billion total is going to be involved in this conflict already. This is starting to remind me, and I always bring this stuff up because you got to look at history, you got to look at playbooks. This is really starting to remind me of the Ukraine-Russia conflict at the beginning phase. Do you guys remember some history with this? What 3 years ago now?
Almost
4 years ago, yeah.
Man.
Remember they kept coming in, and Pentagon kept coming in with DOD and Congress. They said, we need more money for Ukraine. Ukraine needs more international support, and they give Ukraine another 20 billion, 40 billion. They weren't giving Ukraine 40 billion in cash in a pallet. They weren't giving 40 billion to Ukraine in a wire transfer. They were giving Ukraine $40 billion that was directly going to Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and all the military industrial contractors to supply Ukraine with weapons. That's exactly what's happening here. The Pentagon is demanding, or Hegseth saying we need another $67 billion for this Iran war. What they're saying is we need another $67 billion to give to the military industrial contractors because we need more weapon systems because we're literally burning through our weapon platforms, burning through them at a rate we've never really seen in recent conflicts with war. So right now what this is turning into is another gigantic boom for the military industrial complex, and I think that's one of the big factors because you got to remember, every time there's a dip and there's not enough conflict going on, the military-industrial complex doesn't make any money, not anything significant. Every time. This is why right after we pulled out of Afghanistan, that botched withdrawal with Biden, what happened the exact same year? Ukraine-Russian conflict had to start. We started feeding all the cash back to the contractors that was going to Ukraine. Well, that conflict is now massively downregulated, and pretty much it's on its last whimper.
Remember when Eisenhower said he said, beware of the military-industrial complex.
Now, that Ukraine conflict isn't generating enough revenue anymore because a lot of the contracts have been filled. Now, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, the whole top contractors are going, we need more money, guys. We don't have enough war going on. So what do? We start a conflict with Iran, the behest of Israel, and now we've escalated up again, and now here and up. And they're saying now, this is separate to the request of the $1.5 trillion for the 2027 fiscal year starting October 1st. Oh, I mean, you're talking insane amounts of money. This is another reason why. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, what is going on with the high-end exotic car market? All the prices are going back through the roof again. A lot of vehicles are going through the roof. A lot of basically collector vehicles are going back up. Vehicles that you can write off are going back up. And I said, we're watching COVID 2.0 happen right now. There's money that's getting injected into the markets through the stock market, through oil factors, through the military industrial complex, and it trickles down. All these guys are making obscene amounts of money again, and it's starting to hyperinflate assets that are worth long money that are going to be good values to hold and store. That's why you're seeing the other day, Carrera GT just went for $6.7 million.
What?
$6.7 million.
They were a $400,000 car.
Right, and then they moved about $1.5 million, and now they've gone through the roof. All those cars now are going 2 and 3X. And people are going, was it a manipulative, market? Possibly. But what's happened is these guys that have money on the back end are making obscene amounts of money right now. And they're starting to buy up large assets again that hold value. This is something that's really crazy to watch. So you're going to start seeing, because of this conflict, because of this 1.5 trillion, everything else, be prepared because you're going to start seeing pretty aggressive inflation again. This is me predicting what I think is going to start happening over the next year.
It's like throwing another $1.7 trillion.
Exactly what it is. It's not to the extent that happened with COVID, because remember, a lot of the money that happened with COVID went directly to the people. with the STEMI checks and unemployment checks.
Only a
small amount, but it was still, in aggregate, it was still a lot to the general population. This is money that's all going to the big bankers, the little hat guys, the guys that run basically the big giant companies.
The International Kabbalah Synagogue of Satan.
But at the end of the day, that money still has an extent of trickling down. Because these guys still use, say, transporters to transport their cars. They still have this price going up, this price going up, and it trickles down the market, and it's going to start causing, probably not hyperinflation, but it's going to start increasing inflationary factors.
Yesterday, I stopped at the Chevy dealership, okay, and I asked them how they were doing because they've been bought up, and they said they can't get cars from General Motors. Mm-hmm. They said they only have 117 new cars on the lot. The whole lot's covered with used cars, and there's huge gaps in their inventory. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the problem. Why can't they get new cars?
Yeah.
Now, I know there's always a lull when the General Motors tools up from one model year to the next model year. But usually it's not. General Motors has enough inventory to be able to displace that.
Right.
But they don't have it this year. And so the problem with that is that's going to start affecting everybody now as far as, again, it's like you said, it's like COVID 2.0. Now, I want to say one other thing, too. And this came up, I saw this on Zero Hedge. And it said the feds flag Dasick as an extremely high person of interest. Then the FBI told him to stand down. Custom officers spent 3 days building a border examination for the man at the center of the COVID origins fight until Biden's FBI put a stop to it with a single email. Now, on February the 2nd, 2021, a national targeting security specialist, U.S. Customs and Border Protection's National Targeting Center, circulated a referral to colleagues across the agency. The subject was Peter Dasick, president of EcoHealth Alliance, scheduled to land at John F. Kennedy's International Airport 3 days later aboard Qatar Flight 701 from Doha, arriving at 2:25. He was returning from the World Health Organization's mission to Wuhan, investigating the origins. The referral asked that Dasick be considered for a tactical terrorism response team examination. Now think about that. That's a pretty big deal. A secondary inspection that included questioning review of the electronic devices, which now we know never happened. Senator Rand Paul, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, released the underlying records on Monday. They showed that CBP flagged Dasick an extremely high person of interest built on a formal targeting event and then stood down 2 days before his flight at the request of the FBI's New York field office from a direct email from the White House. Now, I think this is false information. Okay, now listen to me for why. Here's why I feel this way. Now, I'm not saying this guy wasn't involved in something. I'm not saying he wasn't dirty. I'm not saying any of that stuff. But what I'm saying is that he's got his own Wikipedia page that goes into detail, and it also goes into this other article right here, and this is why I think it was basically fake. He said that basically this guy is basically, he's bad news. His father was a Nazi who was a concentration camp guard. Really? You know? And so to me, when I see that, it's mind-boggling because, number one, it's unbelievable what they do here as far as some of the stuff that they're working with as far as the different animals and origins and all that kind of stuff too. But they're saying that the reason he was able to do this because he was taught to be a Nazi by his father who was a camp guard at a concentration camp. Now, the only time this kind of stuff ever comes up is because of the little hat guys.
That's it.
It's just the way it is. You know, you think, well, do you think that's what this is? Yeah, I think they're put. Remember, they won a 21-ring circus on the origins of this quote unquote virus. They don't want you to look at what's really going on. They don't want you to look at how the World Health Organization is directly involved in this. That a lot of these major universities who have labs. I covered all this years ago. I'm not going to do it now. Have labs in different countries like Sierra Leone. How they work together to create a virus that basically did not do what it needed to do because it ended up basically mutating too quickly. So they had to find another way to reduce population, so they did it with the injections, which in my opinion was developed by DARPA back 25 years ago and put in the deep freezers and stored up until they had 4 billion vials on hand to vaccinate the entire population of the planet. Now you think about that for a second. You say, well, there's no way that people could hide that information that long. Nobody's hiding it. It's out there. Where do you come up with 4 billion vaccines, 5 billion vaccines? You can't just make that overnight. It takes years and years and years.
Yeah, we've both been in the manufacturing and production. This wasn't million. This was billion with a B. You can't just produce that in a couple months. But remember, what they had to do was they had to have the fear of missing out, the FOMO effect. Remember they came out and said, okay, we have a few shots.
Only giving it to old people.
We're only giving it to 65 and up. You got to get in line. You got to get ready for it. Everybody rushed to Walgreens. They rushed to how about Sears? Sears don't exist anymore. I don't know where that came from.
Seriously, you're giving out your age, Austin.
I think I read an article the other day. It was talking about the fall of Sears. Anyways, so they've had that fear of missing out. They said, okay, now all people that are, have issues or underlying health problems, you can get it now. Everybody ran out and got it. They said, okay.
They're standing in line around blocks.
We may have enough. We may have enough. We brought in deep freezers that store stuff at negative 70 degrees.
No, it's low colder than negative 200.
It was obscene. Yeah. It was obscene. And my $1 million question was who is selling those freezers? Who's the manufacturer? Because that's not a freezer that you just I'm going to go to Lowe's. I'm going to see if they got any good deals on sub 200 degree refrigerators.
Who is selling all the ventilators? Remember, Trump decided an executive order making us get more and more ventilators.
Yeah.
Because of the remdesivir side effects.
Yep. Here's an interesting article, too, now, speaking of all kinds of weird data. Atlanta has become the first U.S. city to offer free smart bassinets for their employees. Although the smart bassinet company takes steps to reduce babies' exposure to wireless, critics have warned of privacy risk and lack of human connection. This is what they want, guys. They want to get everything as disconnected as possible. They said that Atlanta personnel that work for the city are offering all its employees a 6-month free rental of a smart bassinet. This is the Snow, S-N-O-O, Smart Sleeper Bassinet. It's a robotic AI bassinet sold by Happiest Baby, connects to Wi-Fi and an app on the parent's cell phone. Normally costs around $1,700 when purchased via the company's website. The company combines swaddling, white noises, rocking, and a host of other things to help the infant sleep. It said it improves young parents' sleep according to the product's website. The bassinet comes with a sleep sack of cotton swaddle with fixed things that wrap around the baby, keeping it on its back. So basically, the baby goes into this pouch, and it keeps it tight and warm, and it adjusts temperature based on it, and adjusts movement based on how much the baby cries or doesn't cry. Now, let me say this. When you have a first child and not sleeping, it becomes extremely intrusive on your daily life. I'm not even going to argue that.
That's when you hire a nanny.
Yeah, well, I didn't have money for a nanny when I had my first child, so thank you for putting that in my face. Me, Atlanta figured it out.
You're welcome.
Yeah. That was,
we didn't have a nanny for you either as our first child.
No, exactly. So the funny thing about it is, it wasn't funny. I didn't sleep. Land didn't sleep. I got about 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and that's what started wearing me out as I was trying to prep for a bodybuilding show and run the company and bring it back to light. And so I get the point of wanting to have a baby sleep better. The problem is, at what extent do we start allowing robotics and AI to start being injected into a child's life at birth, 6 months, at 12 months, and what extent, how far are we willing to go?
You know, it reminds me of is the cocoon chambers they put the people into the movie The Matrix.
That's actually very accurate.
They were in a bassinet.
No, basically. That's what they're in. I don't have a photo of it right here. I'll pull it up here in a minute. But it's this cotton swaddling cocoon. And then it basically, it adjusts different things. It wraps around the baby so it keeps on its back so they say it doesn't roll over. And then it adjusts basically on the way the baby's moving, if it's upset, if it's crying, and it learns the baby's algorithm. It reaches a point where how much...
The Wi-Fi exposure.
Yeah, well, now here's what they said. The bassinet is lined with a metal shield that blocks 99% of the wireless radiation emitted by the device from reaching the baby. And basically blocks the harmful exposure to EMFs. However, the device raises concerns about the lack of human connection, also privacy risk. All the data, all the information is stored and is sold in the terms and conditions. So you're now going to have your baby's data from the very beginning, their sleep pattern, their growth, their heat, their temperature, their sleep times, all this stuff. For some odd, sick reason, these guys are going to data log it. And they're going to sell it. So they can start doing direct targeted to you, the parent, and I guess probably within the next 12 months, do direct targeting to the child when he gets his iPad at a year-old birthday. It's interesting because when you start watching this stuff now and you start seeing how expensive and how valuable data is and the reasoning why, it's much more than just giving you an ad so you can buy something new. It's about building a profile on you. What better way to have a profile at infancy and build it year after year after year after year? By the time that child's 18 years old, my gosh, the data points. I mean, you're going to have the entire outline of their behavioral pattern, their thinking, their memory, their speech, their behavior, their activity, everything. You're going to have it dialed into a literal science if you allow a child from this point and have continual monitoring, watching. Remember, they have the AI toys now that a lot of people have been banning. They don't even want them as far as in their kids' rooms, anything like that, where they listen. They have microphones and they have cameras in them. They record the child's behavior, what they say, what they do, and of course, in terms and conditions, they can sell all that data. This is getting very, very strange, and so I'm not a fan of the smart sleeper bassinet, because I feel like at a certain point it's like nobody's gonna be able to do anything. You're not gonna be able to do anything private.
We're already at that point, bud. And you know what? David Icke wrote a book. Now, I like David Icke. I'm not going to lie about that. I love David. I don't lie about anything. I like David Icke. Now, I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree about 90% of what he says. He's not a Christian, but the only thing he's ever been exposed to is the Church of England. So I can't say I blame him for that either, because basically he's never been told the truth about who Jesus really is. But the reality is he wrote a book called The Trigger.
Yeah.
About 9/11, the Patriot Act, and all the rest that was done by, he calls it the cult that rules the world. He's talking about the little hat people, but he doesn't call them the Kabbalist Luciferian synagogue of Satan that the Bible basically calls them, as far as the synagogue of Satan. And this is the group that runs the planet, because they answer directly to Lucifer. And remember when there was a book that was written years ago by the Bloodline families, they said that every evening when the Rothschild banking cartel has dinner, they leave a place setting for Lucifer himself at the dinner table. And they said every so often,
Can't make this stuff up, dude.
They said about every 10 or 15 years, he shows up, sits around and talks to him. Now, whether that's true, I don't know. I'm not there. I really don't want to be there. It sounds awful to me. Doesn't it sound awful to you? It's awful.
I'm going to pass on that.
I'm going to pass on that, And it's like going down to Antarctica and going down into one of those caverns with the stairwells that goes into who knows where. I have no interest in doing that. I'm just happy as I can be serving God and trying to obey his commandments and living up here and thinking about Jesus. I mean, that's the number one goal of my life, is God and Christ and serving him. And I hope that's the whole number one goal in your life. And my number two goal is, to be in a relationship, like I was with Sharon, so I can do that. My three is my family. And then after that comes the business and all the rest, and podcasts and all. You guys are all part of my family. But the reality is that if you don't understand where we are and what's going on and who's doing this to us, it's almost impossible to figure it out, because it's so convoluted, Austin. It really is. Now they're trying to blame this other guy whose dad was a Nazi guy, Nazi concentration. Do you really have to dust off another Nazi? Do we have to dig Goering up and put him in the corner and dust him off and put a new uniform on him?
Well,
what's up? And put a rubber mask on him and say, Goering, look what he's doing. I mean, what is this?
Kind of like that one guy that did that interview with the rubber mask on. You can see the
whole
bottom
you see the whole
shirt.
mask.
That, it's funny. No, that's gotten completely scrubbed. Nobody's talking about that interview. Oh, you know why? Oh, because the FIFA World Cup's over now. Maybe people start waking their butts back up, stop staring at a TV screen 12 hours a day, watching every rerun of the soccer game.
I never watched this stupid
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm not a huge sports guy. I mean, you know what? If you're trying to make money and bet on it, that's your job.
When Van Green told me the whole thing's rigged, I was done. I had enough of it. He's NFL. They try to recruit him after the NFL to basically run books and work with bookies.
And this is what I want to cover on this, though. It says the U.S. has spent over $1 billion on World Cup surveillance with little oversight, and has pretty much gotten workarounds from all types of legal requirements because of it being the World Cup and an emergency authorization. People don't even know this. It says, essentially, if you've been visiting or traveling around a host of cities anywhere in the United States, your face, your behavior, your movement, and devices are all being monitored by the government and private companies during that time. What happens after it ends and visitors go home? There's almost no oversight for emergency use, and governance around these federally funded private-public surveillance tech partners have basically had a boom. It says much of the investment in surveillance was done in the name of preventing harm from unauthorized drone use and other types of possible terrorist attacks. Indeed, protecting us against the threat is helping fuel the rapidly expanding government-private sector partnership in surveillance technology development and acquisition. An attorney, author, and educator who worked for decades in privacy and surveillance advised law enforcement about using drones and understand that security is critical to keeping people safe. The argument for security, we have to increase government surveillance and erode civil liberties, chill speech, and undermine freedom because, it's for your safety and protection. They go on to say here that essentially AI-driven surveillance had played a major role across the World Cup. Stadiums at every single host city were all equipped with facial recognition cameras that collected and analyzed facial biometrics of every person around the stadium, not just in the stadium. They said the proliferation of facial recognition at events reflects a broader global trend normalizing biometric surveillance. The data is retained and used in future ways unknown and uncontrolled by those whose biometric data has been collected.
This is why we have to have data setters, Austin.
That's exactly right. They said cameras are proliferating on the ground. Robot dogs equipped with cameras were prowling around Dallas and New Jersey stadiums. Seattle mayor decided to turn and expand all major closed-circuit television systems that had been previously shut down, legally shut down down by judges of biometric privacy concerns, but emergency use brought them back on because of FIFA.
What does that sound like to you? Emergency use authorization?
Emergency use, baby. Yeah. We have to do this to protect everybody now. We've got all the flock cameras, all the AI, all the facial recognition cameras are turned all the way up, along with aerial drones and ground drones monitoring everybody all the time. Guys, this is just my opinion, but it's pretty accurate because I don't say stuff if I don't think it's accurate. This whole FIFA thing here in the United States was a giant beta test from a surveillance security standpoint, that side of it, to see how much they could get away with, how much they could collect, and what to do with all the data and how to curate it all. And apparently they did a doggone good job at it because they want to start keeping this stuff on 24/7 for future safety reasons, guys, because, it's your protection.
Reminds me of Minority Report.
That's exactly what it is.
Cameras everywhere.
Everywhere.
Oh, by the way, Leo wrote a really good article, Leo Homan. He's talking about the land invasion of Iran. Now, this is interesting. We all know this, but I'm just going to he said it in such a good way, I want to repeat it. The land invasion comes solely from American military force because basically Israel says they're out of the loop now. Okay? And for mostly foreign troops, perhaps the Kurds, but either way, it will still be planned in the inner rooms of the Pentagon. It will be led by U.S. Special Ops and make use of U.S. intelligence. So when this invasion is ultimately crushed by the Iranians, it will be a massive. Remember, we went in Afghanistan to do that country too. How'd that work out for us over 20 years? Okay? You think we'd learn from that? Even Russia went in Afghanistan and bankrupted the Soviet Union. So I'd mention that. American power around the world will be perceived as being weak. Some members of the Iranian government have gone on record saying they actually would really like a ground invasion. Yeah, they're going to be fighting out of every cave up there. The terrain is unbelievable because they've been planning for an attack for 40 years, and they're ready for it. Iran's vast size, it's monstrous, by the way. It's like the size of Europe. And the fact that it's blessed with amazing geography and topographic, mountains, also gives an advantage to the home team, making it easier to defend than most countries. There's a reason the Persians have had a 3,000 plus year civilization that even the Romans could not conquer. The Romans couldn't do this, and they had probably one of the greatest armies of all time. But Trump is ignorant of history and blinded by rage and pride and being totally controlled by Jeffrey Epstein's videotapes that Netanyahu controls through Mossad. I'm adding that. As such, he has allowed himself to be backed into a corner that's hard to get out of. He knows that if he were the war to end right now, the Iran left control of the Strait of Hormuz, he would be declared a loser. And there's one thing Donald Trump can't stand, it's losing. He will keep pushing this war rather than trying to bow out gracefully. And in the end, he will suffer an even more humiliating defeat. This will mark the beginning of the end of the American empire. Wow, I had a friend of mine, Steve, told me that this morning. The question is what and who will fill the power vacuum? Then they're talking about China and everything else. But remember, the people who run the military-industrial complex and who own all of the major manufacturing centers around the world now, who never built anything themselves, who bought it all up through acquisitions and mergers, the vulture capitalists, they're the ones making all the money here. And the problem is they always seem to have one little back demographic that unites them all in most cases, not all cases. But it's amazing to me how even Leo's now saying the late great American empire. And it's sad to me how this is happening all over the world now. And it reminds me so much of what happened in Sarajevo and with the First World War. So you're thinking, is this really a hot conflict that could be sparked by a false flag? You betcha. What do you think, Austin?
There's no question about it. By the way, I got YouTube Live up. Hey, guys. Good morning. Hope you guys are having a great day.
There must be a delay on YouTube Live.
It is. There's a delay on YouTube. There's one on there. It's about a minute delay on there. I think just from the feed and everything on it. So again, if you guys got any pertinent, legitimate health questions, feel free to throw them on there.
So I bet you've been getting some crazy comments.
Well, I'm not done today. There's not a lot of people on there today. But again, give me a legit question. We'll be happy to answer them on the show. I'll run through it today. We did that a couple weeks ago and everybody loved it. But any product questions, supplement questions, nutrition questions, I always like answering them as long as they're legitimate and pertinent. Sometimes you get these questions where they're so far off the wall and it's like, I'll get back to you on that or just email me. Now, here's a cool article I want to cover real quick. This is something I've never heard done, but apparently it works pretty good. It's a great way to start getting that momentum going with burning body fat and getting healthy and getting inflammation down. It says the 322 sugar-free body reset, a 2-week plan to kickstart weight loss. It says last summer they held a program called the 322 sugar-free body reset. Participants experienced significant changes in just 2 weeks. At the top of the list, participants lost 9 to 11 pounds and a reduction in their waistline average of 1.2 inches. That's a lot, by the way, in 2 weeks. And it says most participants reported the biggest gains were not only better numbers, but a true understanding of the importance of eating well and exercising regularly. So this is a really good setup, apparently, if somebody doesn't really have any background in exercising, eating clean, and you pretty much just want to find something to do that's not super invasive, that isn't going to take up, massive amounts of time and energy and focus to try to dive into something head first. It says the 3-2-2 sugar-free body reset represents 3 simple principles. Give me camera 4, Rich. It says exercise. Oh, what happened there? Oh, well, I lost my computer. That was fantastic. I don't know what happened there.
Was that power go dead?
Yeah, I don't have it plugged in. It should have been charged up on it. So essentially, I'm just going to do this from memory because I just read it. I'm going off this one. We're going weapons free on this. So essentially what it said was exercise at least 3 times a week. And the exercise doesn't have to be crazy, even just 20 minutes 3 times a week. And it doesn't have to be weight training. It could be jumping jacks. It can be trampoline. I prefer something that's weight resistant to help maintain muscle tissue, but find some things that work for you 20 minutes a day, 3 days a week. The next one was cut sugar out for 2 weeks completely. Any type of carbohydrates you need to eat, they need to be carbohydrates that are very slow glycemic index, meaning like organic sweet potatoes, organic oatmeal. Keep the carbohydrates moderate, but cut out all sugar. All sugar. Meaning everything. If it's got sugar in it, as far as processed sugar, cut it out.
And we're also talking about fruit juice too.
Yes.
No fruit juice.
No fruit juice. If you're going to eat whole fruit, like a whole apple, that's fine.
And no dried fruits like raisins or dates or that kind of stuff.
It needs to be whole fresh fruit. Whole apples. Those are great. Even bananas, fine. Just don't go crazy on them, especially unless like after a workout. It needs to be done for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks of exercise and 3 times a week and 0 sugar. And they're saying now the average person lost 9 to 11 pounds in 2 weeks in this group that they put together.
That's about right.
That's about right. And they said the crazy part about it wasn't just the weight loss. It was the fact that everybody started feeling so much better. They had more sleep and they had more energy.
Can you send me that article? We need to post
I
it
will.
on
I'm going to figure out what's going on my laptop. I'm pretty sure it died, and I have to go get the charger, which is going to take me a second. So I'm going to hand you the show in a second.
Great. So you're going to run next door and get the charger.
I'm not running. I'm going to walk.
Right. So I have about 5 minutes.
I'll move quick. I'm fast.
So it's my turn?
Ankle's great. Go handle it real quick. I'll be right back.
There was a movie came out in 2012. It was about a disaster movie about the end of the world. And Daily Mail's kind of talked about what's happened in that movie, but not directly relating back to the movie. And it says, apocalyptic early warning system is now going online to track billionaire jets fleeing before disaster strikes. Do you remember what happened in the movie 2012? It was a great movie. It didn't happen in 2012 as far as the disaster at the end of the planet. But all of a sudden, this warning went off on everybody's cell phones that it was time to leave the United States, leave where they were going, and go to these giant ships that have been built in China to get past the deluge that was supposed to happen when Planet X returned. Planet X, don't even go there with me. It's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. More fear porn. But the reality was, what they're saying here now is that they're learning now to track billionaire jets that are fleeing before disaster strikes. Now, think about that. I've got multiple friends that own private jets, and I have been blessed to have ridden on several of these jets over the years. And I have friends that also lease jets, and I've been able to ride on several of those. Now, I will say something to you. As a pilot, I absolutely love flying for private, even on my own little Cessna 210 that I had. It's great. It's nice. You miss all the security lines. You miss the TSA. You miss getting groped. You miss getting sexually assaulted. You miss all that mess when you get to fly private. You can put all the guns on the plane. You can do whatever you want to do. As long as you're not flying to a place that doesn't allow guns, you're good. Like I would never fly into New York City with a plane full of guns. You're going to get arrested, period. That's what's going to happen. It's kind of bizarre how they do that, but that's what they believe. I remember years ago there was an athlete who went to the police station to turn in his gun he was carrying in New York City, and they immediately arrested him for turning in his gun because he was carrying the guns at the police precinct. So New York's just a different animal, the liberal nonsense up there, plus all the crime and all the crazy stuff. Only the criminals get to keep guns in New York. But the sad part about it is on this movie, all of these billionaires were getting on their private jets and taking off and flying to China, basically, to get on this boat. There were thousands of them get there. But it says here, if the world's wealthiest and best connected people knew a catastrophe was approaching, their private jets might reveal it before officials have sounded the alarm. That theory has inspired a programmer to build an online apocalyptic warning system that monitors more than 31,000 private and business aircrafts for the signs of an unusual exodus. The website continually counts how many of the jets are airborne and compares the figure with historical patterns, searching for a surge that could suggest powerful insiders responding to a looming crisis. On Monday, it was tracking 869 aircraft in the sky and estimated they could carry almost 11,000 people. Los Angeles programmer Colin McDonald created a system after questioning whether the movements of the rich and powerful could expose dangers that the wider public had not yet grasped or were not made aware of. We've grasped it, which is not going to tell us when they pull the trigger on this. His website assigns global private jet activity an emergency level beyond between 1 and 5, with the highest level triggered when the number of aircraft in flight rises dramatically above normal. Users can watch the level change in real time or register for text and email alerts warning when that activity suddenly spikes. You got to love America that you got people that set up a program that shows you where the private jets are so you can determine if a disaster is looming. You got to love this. I'm sure there's a cost on this. McDonald, or they have advertisers. McDonald stresses the system cannot predict an apocalypse, but believes it could offer another public clue that something unusual is unfolding behind the scenes. He goes, quote, I created it after it became clear that insiders in the U.S. government were making personal profits from information related to war plans, he told the Daily Mail. McDonald said the idea began forming around April the 7th when he noticed a rise in private aircraft activity as President Donald Trump issued an incendiary threat to wipe out his whole civilization. The apparent surge made him wonder whether the world's wealthiest, best-connected people were quietly preparing for a crisis before the wider public understood the danger. His theory sharpened less than 2 weeks later when he read reports about approximately $1 billion in prediction market wagers allegedly placed in striking timing and around the prospect of war with Iran. You and I talked about this, Austin, here a few weeks ago, how so many of the news press conferences were being given information to people before the news press, and they were betting, shorting, longing stocks, everything else, and making billions of dollars. Now, that's supposed to be illegal, and the White House is checking for press leaks to find out how this is happening, but they know it's happening, and they don't know what to do with it. So flying on a private jet to avoid an apocalyptic scene may be interesting, because remember, I think it was Thiel just went down there and bought a whole bunch of land in Argentina in the middle of nowhere because he wants to be separated from the groups of people out here. Now, I had another person that I knew over in Tampa. He bought like 50 acres and put like a 15-foot wall around it. I mean, concrete block wall all the way around the property. Now, does he know that something's coming? I don't know. Does he just have a lot of money? Yeah, he did. Is he eccentric? Probably. You know, on and on and on. Well, he's the one who wrecked that. It was an F-40 Ferrari. Was that the one he wrecked? Enzo. And they took the frame and the little plaque, and they went back and they rebuilt it for him. That's how much power he has. They went back and built it at Ferrari to make it the same count, the same unit, but it was completely rebuilt for him because I think he hit a guardrail with it.
Yeah, he hit a guardrail, ripped the front of the car off.
Yeah, ripped the total of the car. But anyhow, so are they going to be taking private jets everywhere? Well, I could say one thing to you. If you're somebody who's leaving Cuba and Castro's taking over, you're going to hop on a private boat or a private jet back in the 60s, and they're going to get out of the country quick. Because trying to fly commercial, when that happens, probably not a good look. What do you think, Austin?
I'm back. I found a charger somewhere. Got it hooked back up. Going back to my previous topic, I was so rudely interrupted by my power supply on this laptop, is the 3 days a week, cut out sugar for 2 weeks, feel changes in body 2 weeks, and exercise 3 days a week. What part of here I want to cover? It says, learn to read food ingredient list. I cannot stress that anymore, especially with food at the grocery store, especially if it's processed food, to determine whether food contains sugar or added sugar before eating. Modern processed food often contains substantial amount of sugar to improve taste and shelf life. Sauces are especially easy to overlook. For example, even healthy-looking salad dressings contain elevated levels of sugar and oil, especially soybean oil, or looking like ketchup. Excuse me. Ketchup is probably one of the worst possible condiments you can put on your food.
More sugar than ice cream.
Yeah, it's insane. When you actually look how much sugar is in it to the teaspoon they put on there, tablespoon they put on there, it's insane. This is why I tell everybody the little changes through the day on the diet make big results because they add up in cumulative. When you go and you eat, I told you this before, perfect example. Occasionally, rare occasion, maybe like once a month, something's going on, I'll take the kids to Five Guys, right? When I order Five Guys burger, I don't order ketchup on it. I don't order mayonnaise on it. I don't order any of the condiment sauces they have other than mustard.
Mustard's great.
Cheese sometimes I don't add. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'll have like lettuce, tomato, jalapenos, peppers, mushrooms. That's it. When you start adding all that ketchup and all that mayonnaise, you're adding another like 200 to 300 calories on the sandwich. Right there. Goes from a 900-calorie burger to like a 1,200-calorie burger with two condiments. That's it. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot. It's 300. Well, then something else. You do a salad throughout the day, and you go throw a bunch of like Thousand Island on it or something else. There's another 200-300 calories in sauces. Well, then at night you go want something else, and I'm going to throw some ranch on it or some other sauce. Another 200-300 calories. Well, now you've already eaten a lot of calories with these meals throughout the day, but you've already had it on about another extra 1,000 calories in your diet just in condiment sauces on a few meals. Now, 1,000 calories a day in sauces that produce no benefit to the body, you're going to see a huge change in your body composition just by cutting those out every single day. And so that's what they're talking about here, differentiating between sugar and carbohydrates. The problem often lies with refined starches such as white bread, pasta, rice, because the fiber and bran are removed. The results produce a very, very fast digestible carbohydrate, insulin increasing product. Many people mistakenly consider high-starch foods such as like pumpkins or vegetables or eating excessive carbohydrates, and they don't realize what they're eating most of the time is the processed food that's causing the problem. Little changes make a big difference. That's why they're saying here, cut out all sugar. Instead of drinking iced tea 3 meals out of your day, cut down to water. Instead of having ketchup on your food in there, replace it with, nothing. You don't need ketchup on everything. God, my gosh, why do you have to have everything taste like sugar? So you do those changes, they make a big difference. That's what this article's talking about, including the workouts and essentially being consistent. Also making sure you're drinking adequate amount of water. That is crucial. Half your body weight in fluid ounces of purified water. If you're 200 pounds, you'd be drinking at least 100 ounces a day, which is close to a gallon of purified water. Usually add the aqua trace minerals to it. Because remember, if you're burning fat and you're trying to stay in shape, your body has to be able to flush the system out. The liver needs water. The kidneys need water. Your body needs water. It has to be able to flush this stuff out. And another thing you can do too, on top of this is what I would recommend to change this, is I would do a 3-day GHI fast starting this. I would start out the beginning of this 2-week protocol with a 3-day GHI fast.
That's a great idea.
That's how I would change it. I've done that numerous times. You have 1-day fast, 2-day fast, 3-day fast of straight pure GHI. If you're not used to fasting much, just do 24 hours. Do 24 hours, 2 scoops of GHI, probably 3 or 4 times a day. That's going to put you at about 1,200 calories that first day with GHI. So it's really not a fast, more of just a low calorie detox. And do that for the first day and then go back into it. But doing the GHI cleanse, reducing the inflammation as you're cutting out the sugar in our products, I think that'd be an incredibly effective thing to do as far as for results on this and getting your inflammation down and getting your body fat in a phase where it's going to start burning more efficiently.
Well, if you clean out the liver to start with, gastrointestinal, hepatic liver, and inflammation. That's what it's designed to do. Oh, by the way, here's an interesting article. I read it. It's kind of funny. I'm going to post it. It says, my toaster wants my email address. Really?
Yeah, probably.
Well, no, they're connected. That's the problem. Like when you buy new appliances like refrigerators, they have monitors on them. They have cameras on them. They have microphones on them. And they listen to everything in the surrounding room. And then they want to send you an email. It's time to order cheese. It's time to do this. It's time to do that. So when you buy new refrigerators now, and I know they're convenient, but there's always something going on with them as far as tying them into the internet. And it's kind of frightening when you think about it, because I don't want to give my toaster my email address. And I get so fed up with it every time I try to do something. It's like, what is your email address? What is your telephone number? What is your social security number? What is your credit card information? And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I'm not giving you credit card information. There was a thing that happened just in Norway, or I was in Paris last year, 2 years ago. They had this huge web developer put together the giant thing how to get houses and apartments cheap in Paris.
Okay.
I mean, full website. And they would do the background check for you and everything else. You had to pay them $1,000, and they would guarantee you that they have a place for you in Paris for like $500 a month, and they'd have it to you within 25 to 21 days.
Okay.
It was
Sounds pretty cool.
It's out of China. It's all fake.
Whole fake.
All fake. All they wanted was your credit card number, and they wanted you to wire
Total scam.
Total scam. They wanted you to wire money to them for the $1,000 application fee, and there was nothing there. The whole website was fake. It was all fake. And it had nothing to do with anything. It was all based out of China or Africa or some other third world country that has no extradition with us, that basically they can do whatever they want to do and steal your money. Remember, when you wire money to somebody, if you wire it to an account and the person goes in and takes that money out of the account in cash, there ain't no getting the money back.
And let me say this. This has happened repeatedly down here in Florida. I'm glad you brought this up. If you are trying to apply for a rental house down here, almost, well, not all of them, but a lot of places want like a $50, $100, $75 application fee.
Background check. Yeah.
Background check application fee. Do not, under any circumstances, put that on a credit card.
Nope.
give them a check.
Or
you can cancel.
give them cash.
Or give them cash if you want to do that. There's been numerous agencies now that have been busted over the years. I mean, it was on the news a couple of years back that they were going in and they were getting a trough of people with applications. So say they'd have 100 apartments there for rent. Well, they'd get 500 applications in for those 100 apartments. And what they do is they'd collect all the fees. Well, they'd take the first 100 that they knew that were the top tier. They got the apartments. Everybody else just crap out of luck. It wasn't even like they had bad credit or bad background checks or anything. It was just the first 100 got it. And they collected another 400 application fees that they never intended to run anything on. And they kept the money. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot. So you start saying, what's $100 a person, $400 application. Now you've got basically, $40,000. That fast.
For nothing.
For nothing. And you got scammed out of it, and you go, oh, man, I didn't get approved. I'll go on the next one because it's $100. It's like, is it willing to try to go to court with them over it? Small claims court? Probably not. Is it irritating? Yeah.
Now, what you can do, you can go ahead and put it on a credit card through PayPal.
You could do that.
And you put it down as a business transaction, not as a personal gift.
Yeah.
And then if they don't provide or do what they're supposed to do, you can actually have a back charge.
That's a good idea with that. As much as I don't like PayPal.
As much as I don't like PayPal, you can actually, I've done that before. And then all of a sudden now, you may not get the money back, but you're going to cause havoc for you. You're going to have
What's going
to
do is
flag them on PayPal.
Exactly. After a company gets multiple back charges or inquiries into fraud, they'll shut down the virtual terminal.
But you've got to use basically the little thing where it says this is a business transaction. Yeah. You can't make it a personal gift because they won't back charge a personal gift ever.
No.
They won't do it.
No, but be cautious of that down here in Florida. That's happened numerous times now where it's a quick $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and most of the time it goes unchecked because people just, oh, man, I didn't get approved. It's whatever. I'll just let it go. $50 application fee, whatever. I didn't get approved. And they go in and they make all this money. They go on and do it again and again and again and again and make a chunk of cash on it. Now, I want to cover something. I had a customer listener on here. They asked a question. YouTube. My computer's just absolute trough today. Somebody asked, what happened to the turmeric and black seed oil combination product? That was a product from New Chapter.
Yeah, years ago.
It got discontinued. It has nothing to do with me. It didn't sell. They didn't want to carry it. They stopped carrying it. This is why I've got to the point now where I'm so cautious about working with other companies. I just manufacture my own product. The problem with it is there's not really a purpose to have that product combined because we already have super high dose black seed oil and we have super high dose turmeric, and we've got turmeric in half the products we have. Their detox formulas like the GHI. And so a lot of times it was unnecessary product because people are already taking black seed oil and they're already taking turmeric.
Well, a lot of people ask me for multiple different combinations of product, and let me explain something to you.
Yeah, please explain. I get the same questions.
No, and don't get me wrong, it's not a bad idea.
And some of them are great.
But the problem is the inventory management. See, when we order product, we can't, when we have a manufacturer make products, sometimes the minimums are 5,000 units.
Yeah.
Now listen to me, please. So let's say we buy a product for $10 or whatever, and we sell it for $18 or whatever we're doing with it. We've got to carry, if we buy 5,000 of those inventory for $10 a piece, you're going to have $50,000 tied up in inventory. Now, what happens if it doesn't sell?
Or it's a slow seller. Expiration dates start to creep up.
What if the expiration date punches out? What if basically you can't move or market the product? What if the demand's not there? So when you start manufacturing these products, you have to order large minimums in order to get them done at a decent price. Then what ends up happening is the inventory control goes out of hand. It really does. Inventory carrying costs go out of hand, and inventory storage goes out of hand. And so it's just not possible. We already carry over 100 products. And so it creates a real problem. If I want pink strawberry vanilla or whatever for protein. Okay, we could make that. But how many people really want that product? And how are we going to move 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 cans of it? So we can't physically do that. That's why the marketing companies like that, New Chapter, they go in, they test it, they can't sell it.
They quit selling it.
They can't market it, so they got to cut it loose.
Well, it's, for example, like this. Our extreme stress relief kit, right? So got ashwagandha, 5-HTP controlled release, adrenal support, which got a ton of great stuff in it. Cortisol buster is one of my favorite. We could easily tell our manufacturer, throw all this product in one can, one scoop. Here's the problem. What if somebody doesn't want 5-HTP in their kit because they're taking an SSRI and they want to trade the product, but they can't because now it's 5-HTP? Now I've cut that entire market out. Well, someone else goes, well, I already have your ashwagandha that I'm taking on a regular basis. I don't need ashwagandha in the whole kit. So I'm not going to buy the whole product in one can because I'm already taking ashwagandha. So that's one of the reasons why we have very specific products and we don't do a lot of combination formulas. That got really popular over the last, probably pre-COVID. I saw a lot of companies doing that. They're doing these combination formulas. The problem is the companies started running, I've seen this happen numerous times, they run into redundancies. Well, I'm already taking B12 and this, and this, and this, and this. Well, now you've got a product with 8 different ingredients and you got B12 in it. You reach a point where you start overlapping too far. And so the combination products sound cool on paper. They sound like they're a cool idea for a specific group of people. But in most cases, you end up having to discontinue them because they start going on expiration date.
My favorite example is this. You know, we used to manufacture audio cassette tapes.
No.
Audio tapes. I mean, nobody listens to those anymore. Nobody has a tape player anymore. You know, the DVDs have gone. CDs are gone. Nothing even comes in the car any longer. And so we had literally thousands of binders for audio cassette tapes at my office. Thousands. Cases. A room full of them. Guess where they ended up? In the landfill. I personally hauled them over there in a big trailer and with a dump trailer and dumped them because they were all in the way. And that's what happens with inventory when it gets stale and you can't market it or you can't sell it. It just has to be, you have to dispose of it.
Well, there's a couple times you guys have known this. We've had products and we have a best buy date. Mm-hmm. We're like, hey, the product expires in 3 months. Burn it out. We dump it. Sometimes we sell it below cost.
Just to move it.
Just because it's better to sell it below cost and recapture some of the product cost than it is to have it expire completely and we got to throw it in a dumpster. Then it's like it's useless. Then you just take a complete loss. Not only are you losing the product cost, you're losing the product potential sale that it had as well. So you're essentially losing double the money on it. Another question somebody had here, I don't know what spray they're talking about. It says, I'm extremely sensitive to farmer spray. Can't move. Best way to detox. I have a great diet.
Probably glyphosate.
Probably glyphosate. One of the biggest things we just talked about, GHI cleanse, detox, staying away from the product. Obviously, glyphosate builds up in the body. If you continue to expose yourself to it, it's going to continue to get worse. You've got to give your body a break and detox. And doing the GHI cleanse, a really, really good formula to detox off of that. Also, too, you can throw in additional liver support and N-acetylcysteine to try to help out with that. But one of the biggest things is you've got to stop being exposed to it.
That's right.
And then one more question on here. James, he said, I've been stuck at 145 since age 15 and I'm 23. I like to bulk, but nothing seems to be working. Is it my metabolism or could it be parasites? Great question on that. Could be parasites. May need to do parasite cleanse. That's a couple weeks. It'll basically knock out just about anything you could have exposed to on there. Secondly, could have a very strong active thyroid system. Thirdly, you really got to make sure you're looking at your food calorie intake and also looking at your blood sugar levels as well. That can be a problem if you have really, really high insulin and you're also exercising properly, but not over-exercising. Also dependent on what your job description is. If you're working roofing or construction this summer, which I've done, it is almost impossible to try to gain weight. It's really hard because you're outside all day in the sun sweating 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day. You can't eat a lot of food because you get nauseous. Been there, done that. So one of the best things you can do is start trying to add in weight gainer shakes in the morning and also at night along with more calories. And write this down. I've written it down on the show before, but I'm going to do this really clearly. Fit Food Protein, this is in a shake, like 2 to 3 scoops of Fit Food Protein with organic whole milk, preferably grass-fed.
Organic whipping cream.
Well, you can get whipping cream. It depends how much fat you can process, though, with the heat. This is why I'm bringing this up, because a lot of times you eat too much fat during the day, it slows the digestion process down. If you get out in the sun with that, it's going to make you sick. So organic, whole, raw cow's milk, best option if you can get it. Organic milk, if you can't. Throw that in with 3 scoops of Fit Food. Throw multiple frozen bananas with about 2 tablespoons of almond butter in a shake.
There you go.
And you make about a 16-ounce shake if you do the proper formula.
And you can use up to half a cup of almond butter if you like.
Correct, if you need to.
I mean, I had, Gene Dawes did that.
Yeah.
He was 140 pounds. He's 6'3", skinny as a rail. We put him on that program, and he ended up gaining 50 pounds in like 6 months.
Now, he also did a conjunction with weight training, though.
He did. It worked out with me.
And so that's the biggest thing is, there's a big difference between working outside in the sun and having that type of endurance to work outside. And there's another type of endurance to be able to train with heavier weights and progressively build up and go to failure on certain exercises. They're 2 completely different subsets. So I don't know what your background is as far as you're working out, but again, at the end of the day, you've got to figure out how to get in that type of weight training exercise. 20 to 30 minutes is fine, helping building increased muscle tissue and also to getting the calories you need.
By the way, Supreme Court rejects another end run around the Second Amendment out of Hawaii. Hawaii's most recent Second Amendment defeat at the U.S. Supreme Court was both a major victory for the right to bear arms and entirely predictable. Since the court's landmark decision 4 years ago in New York State Rifle and Pistol Associations versus Bruin, Hawaii's anti-gun makers and lawmakers have been trying to accomplish what Bruin had already forbidden, preventing ordinary law-abiding citizens from carrying a firearm in public for self-defense. Their tool of choice became known as the vampire rule, an absurd legal contrivance stipulating that licensed concealed carry permit holders couldn't carry onto private property open to the public unless the property owner had given them express permission. The state compounded the restriction by designating an expansive list of so-called sensitive places where carrying was also prohibited, from parks and beaches to government buildings and restaurants. For the past 4 years, Hawaii effectively annulled the right to carry a firearm in public. But on June the 25th, the Supreme Court rejected the effort in no uncertain terms. Now, I wonder how this is going to do as far as in public areas at Disney World and private property.
When you start running into private property law, it also depends, again, because here's the problem with Disney World. They're their own little island entity.
They're their own police force.
They're their own little entity. That's why I don't like them at all, because they've gone in, they completely ignored Swift Mud, EPA. They're not even required.
They negotiated back in the 60s.
60s, they did do that. But they could go in. They could go dredge a swamp.
Reedy Creek.
Go build an entire another, hotel on top of a swamp, and they don't even have to get full approval like anybody else would. They come in and basically tell the city, tell the state, by the way, we're building this. We'll let you know when you're done. You can come by and you can approve it for us, because you're going to approve it because we're Reedy Creek. And they just do anything they want out there. They have their own fire department. They have their own police department. They have everything. And so they're above the rule of law. So I doubt that'll change anything with law enforcement.
Now, what they do, this is what they do. Rather... Plun of words. They actually, when they have a problem out there, they don't bring their own police force in to arrest people. They bring in the sheriff's or police department.
Yeah.
We know. And we've experienced all that with a crazy group of girls out of North Carolina who decided we couldn't laugh on a ride.
Well, they have their own private contractors there, too.
That's right.
But what they do is, most cases, if it applies to anything as far as law violation, they use Orange County Sheriff's Department, so they can basically, we have no involvement with that. That was the Orange County Sheriff's Department that did that.
It was actually a brilliant marketing strategy.
It was. It gives them a buffer zone, so they don't get dragged into court.
Yeah, they're not dragged into court, so they're fine. Oh, by the way, keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus all the days of your life. Don't worry about World War III. God's got this. It's okay. We're all going to be taken care of in the end. Anyhow, we all get to go to heaven, spend eternity with God Almighty and with Jesus. And so this is the day the Lord hath made. We will rejoice. We will be glad at it, no matter what they do or whatever they say. But remember, keep your hearts and minds open to the truth. That's very, very important. Don't let people say to you, you can't complain about what the government's doing because of the book of Romans in the New Testament. Yeah. Completely taken out of context. We're not supposed to sit here and allow them to do whatever they want to do to us whenever they want to do it to us and like it. We don't have to do that. The founding fathers of our country in 1776, many of them were really strong patriot Christians. And they said, we're not doing this. King George is not doing this to us anymore. No. You don't have to be a serf. You don't have to be a peasant. You don't have to be treated like dirt and like it. You don't have to like it. Be vocal about it and talk about it and let people know. Talk to the listen.
I'm going to cover this tomorrow. This is huge. Major appeals court has declared the New Jersey AR-15 ban is completely unconstitutional. They have struck down the New Jersey ban on semi-automatic rifles and magazines holding more than 10 rounds. Done. Unlawful. Unconstitutional.
Well, now
Philadelphia-based Third U.S. Circuit Court.
Will California have to comply with that too?
I don't know. This wasn't Supreme Court. This is appeals court in Philadelphia. I'll talk more on it tomorrow, guys. Thank you for the support. Thank you for everybody taking care of us, making your Health Masters family. If y'all need anything, call us. We're here to help you out. Be sure to check out the product of the week, the Berberine. That'll be changing later on this afternoon. Complex will be up for a little bit longer. Berberine will be going on later on tonight. Have a good evening, my friends. Stay strong, stay healthy. We'll talk to you on this show tomorrow as always.
And remember, right now in Spain, it's 122 degrees in some places.
Gosh.
Hottest ever. You stay well hydrated if you're over there in Europe with this heat wave.
Yeah.
And make sure you get plenty of salt in your diet to maintain that fluid. And be really careful about overdoing it in the heat, because you don't want heat stroke or heat exhaustion. I love you guys. Thank you for your support, and thank you for praying for us. We pray for you all the time. I appreciate you.